Hello students, welcome back to my lecture series on Animal Kingdom. Today we will be discussing another major important phylum, and that is platyhelminths. Okay, well, before actually starting the topic, I have something special for you. It's an excerpt from the Energy Wild. Have a look at this. Well, what you see this time, these are actually the flatworms, the different species of the flatworms, and you see the different pattern here, especially their dorsal side. They look very different. They just look like a leaf-like structure, or we can say the part of a washroom curtain. And see the pattern. It's a beautiful pattern. The reason why I'm showing this video to you is that so that you can get an overview how they look like whenever you study them, whenever you discuss each characteristic, so that this you will recall. And these white things here, these are actually the copulatory organs. You will discuss them ahead. And there, this kind of a pattern, that leaf-like structure, and that pattern usually found on them on their different species, that makes them different. Well, I hope you got their overview, how they look like. Now let's get back to the topic. Let me remove this. Okay. Well, what actually are platyhelminths? Now, the platyhelminths is actually the combination of the two words, that's platyhelminths. Okay. Now, plat means here flat, and helminths means worms. Now, combining these two words here, flat and worms, so it forms flatworms. So they are also known by another name, that's, or we can say the commonly they are called as the flatworms. And the first person to record them was the Aristotle. Okay, and the name of platyhelminths later on was given to them by the Guggenbauer. Okay, he was the first person who introduced the platyhelminths to the animal kingdom. Okay, or we can say included in the animal kingdom. Although I told you the name, the Aristotle, but the Aristotle was not able to give a broad range of characteristics about them, or we can say of them. Now, talking about their the number of the species, there are about 13,000 species of the flatworms, or we can say the platyhelminths, known today. Known today. Maybe there might be many other species that are still unknown to the mankind, but right now 13,000 species, which is also a huge number, are found, and mostly these are marine. These are marine, although some are freshwater too. Okay, and and another important is that out of their the adaptation is their parasitic nature is dominant. Okay, it means mostly they are parasitic. Well, they are actually the first group of animals in which the anterior part, not the posterior, in which the anterior part is developed into head. They are the first group of the animals. When I say anterior part, for example, if this is a platform here, so this is actually the anterior part. So this is actually developed into head. Okay, and this is the posterior part. Now, the shape of the body is generally dorsal, ventrally flattened. That's why they got the name flatworm, and also called as their members are called as flatworms. No segmentation. It means their body is not segmented. No external internal segments can be found, or we can say the metabolism can be found in the platyhelminths, phylum platyhelminths. Okay, let's move to the Okay, let's move to the next slide. Here we have what are the important characteristics, or we can say the characteristic features of the flatworms, or we can say the platyhelminths. Okay, let me tell you that the flatworms is actually the name, the flatworm, that's actually the primitive name. And the platyhelminths name, or we can say the term that was used with the Gaussian bar later on. Now, the first important point is here is that they or the first group of the animals to have the organ system level of organization. I have already discussed in detail in the very first video the levels of the organization, just like we have cellular level of organization, and after that comes the cells combined, they perform as same or similar kind of the functions, they form the tissues and the organisms exhibiting this exhibiting the tissues or possessing tissues, they form the tissue level of organization. And even before that, tissues may get combined and they form the organs, and organs may form systems, they get combined and they may work in collaboration and they may form the organ system. Okay, so organ system here actually has been used. It means they are the first group of the animals that have an organ system level of organization. So it means, for example, there is a digestive system, we can see there is a circulatory system, there is excretory system. Okay, there is another there are separate systems, the organs just combine and they form a separate systems. That's why the organ system level of organization can be found in platyhelminths, okay, or the flatworms. And this is the first group possessing this feature, okay, that possesses this feature. Now what's their mode of nutrition? The mode of nutrition is usually parasitic in them. Mostly they are parasitic, mostly. Okay, this can be seen because of the presence of the hooks and suckers. Okay, the hooks and suckers. These are actually simple, just like I showed in this video. Those copulatory organs, they're just same. They act as hooks, are just like the same, and the suckers, which I have already told you, and the suckers that with these apparatus, with these structures, they get hold onto their host, and in this way they get or they derive their nutrition or the nourishment from them. And when I say they are parasitic, it means that in return they may cause diseases, they may prove fatal, they may prove harmful to the host. Okay, so that's why they are parasitic in nature. Sometimes suckers may be present, and sometimes hooks may be present, and sometimes both may be present for the attachment with the host. Okay, now talking about their symmetry, they are bilaterally symmetrical. Okay, they are bilateral symmetrical. Although I have discussed this symmetry in detail in the very first video. You can have a quick look at that video. So they are bilateral symmetrical. It means they have they have right identical parts of the body. The body can be divided into one plane, and which may result into the two parts, and they are just like the mirror images to each other. So they form the first group of animals that show the bilateral symmetry. Okay, and as well as they have the dorsal and ventral surfaces. So this forms the first group of the animals. This is a very important point. Don't forget it. First group of animals that show the bilateral symmetry, that's platyhelminths. So that are actually the platyworms. And also the first group of the animals that have the organ system level of organization. And also first group of animals that have their anterior part is developing into head. Also put this one. These are the three important characters, and they are first, they top in this. And when we say their anterior part is developed into head, it means this process is called the cephalization. Okay, this is actually called the cephalization, showing that their anterior part is gets developing into head. Now, here, now talking about the embryonic cell layers, or we can say the germ layers. So 3 germ layers can be found in them, or we can say they possess 3 germ layers. So they are the first group of animals also to possess 3 germ layers. Okay, ectoderm. I will write down here. Yep, ecto, meso, and endoderm. All the 3 layers are present and very well developed in them. So that's why they are triploblastic in nature. Now talking about the coelom, do they possess coelom? No. Here is A, it means absent. Coelom is not present in them. Now the coelom is what is there? What's there instead of coelom? Actually, the space between the body cavity and the alimentary canal. And the alimentary canal is filled with loose parenchyma cells, or we can say the mesenchyma cells. So there is why there is no cavity there, and instead of cavity, instead of the body cavity, or we can say the coelom, there is the presence of the parenchyma cells or the mesenchyma cells. And you will be surprised to know that these cells are originated from the mesoderm, okay, the middle layer. Now, talking about the alimentary canal, it opens out by a single opening called a mouth. So there is single opening. Keep in mind, single opening. Ants is absent. It means second opening is not there. When I say second opening is not there, it means the alimentary canal, or we can say the digestive system, is incomplete. That is why, or what's the reason for this? Because there is only one opening, okay, and separate ends is absent. So this mouth acts as both for ingestion as well as the egestion, okay. But in case of parasitic forms, or we can say in the parasitic flatworms, or the parasitic flatworms or platyhelminths, the digestive system or the alimentary canal may be reduced or absent, complete. We can say the absent. Okay, you can just choose. There may be in NEET and other medical entrance exams, there may be option absent, so you can go for absent. Okay, so talking about the skeleton, skeletal and the respiratory systems, both are absent. I will write down here skeleton and respiratory system. Both are absent. Keep in mind, please. This may be asked in the examination. Both are absent. Okay. Now, talking about the excretory system. For excretory system, or we can say the osmoregulation, it's brought about by the special cells, specialized cells, and we call them as Flam cells. Okay, they're called the Flam cells, and these open through one or more excretory pores to the outside. And Flam cells are similar. Sometimes they are also called as solenocytes. Sometimes they are also called as solenocytes. Okay. Wait a second. Let me drag this upwards so that I can discuss a little bit more about this. So they are also called as solenocytes. Yeah. Now, and because they are similar to the solenocytes. Okay, but they are solenocytes are they are elongated, but these Flam cells, they are less elongated. These are less elongated. These are less elongated. And in case of solenocytes, they are surrounded by the blood vessels, but here they are devoid. I will simply draw the cross. Here they are devoid of blood vessels. So blood vessels cannot be found surrounding them, surrounding the Flam cells, or we can see the proteinophilia. So why we will say them the Flam cells? If you will connect them with the tubular excretory system. So, for example, let me draw here. For example, if this is cell, and you will connect it with the tubular structures, okay, tube-like structures. So these tube-like structures along with this flam cell and they form protonephridia. So that's why they are also called as the protonephridia. Okay, and their work is osmoregulation and acceleration, which I already told you. Now, talking about here, we have another slide, and yeah, the reproduction. Now, most hermaphrodites, most are hermaphrodites. Among them, most are hermaphrodites. It means that sexes are not separate. Sorry, sexes. Yeah, sexes are not separate. So it means they are found on one. So I have here the cross represents that sexes are not. There is no separate male. There's no separate female. But I say most. I say most. It means few, maybe. And they reproduce through asexually as well as sexually. Okay, the reproduction takes place through sexually as well as asexually. Okay, now the important thing that I'm going to tell you here is that the in case of them, the cross fertilization is dominant. CF, which is it's dominant. It's dominant. And why it is so? Because their anatomy is designed in a such a way that the cross fertilization is dominant instead of the self fertilization. Okay, and and asexually, if platforms have to undergo the asexual reproduction, they can reproduce through the fragmentation as well as the regeneration. So when I say the regeneration, it's very much high in some of flatworms, and through regeneration, a small part of the body can develop into a fully well-developed flatworm, can give rise to the fully and well-developed flatworm, or we can say the flat helmet. Okay, so that's why I say that some of the members possess high regeneration capacity. Well, I will give you examples for this also in the next slides also. Now the fertilization takes place inside the body, and which means internal fertilization takes place, not external. And the development involves larval stages, just like we have here, amphiblastula and the parenchyma. Okay, these are actually the larvae. When talking about also another important characteristic, that is the nervous system. That's the nervous system. Well, the nervous system is actually it's ladder-like. It's actually the ladder-like. Okay, it's actually the ladder-like, and there is actually the concentration of the nervous tissue in the head region. In the head region. Okay. Or we can say the later has a brain ganglion. Brain ganglion. So the concentration of the nervous tissue is in the head region. From brain arise the two main longitudinal nerve cords connected at the intervals by the transverse commissures, and just like they form this type of structure. And that's why these transverse commissures, they give rise. These are longitudinal, what we call as a nerve cords, and these are the transverse commissures, and they give rise to a ladder-like nervous system. Now let's move to the another here, and we have at the end here we have some examples here, and these are number first staph form. Let me choose another color here. Number first is staph form, and it's also called as a tinea. It's scientific name, also called as the pork tap worm. And we have here liver fluke, and it's called the fasciola. Well, talking about the fasciola, this is actually digenetic parasite. Now you will be confused. Now, what is a digenetic? So digenetic, it means a parasite requiring alternation between the two hosts. Alternation between the two hosts. Okay, for the completion of the life history. The completion of life history. So that's called the digenetic. It requires two hosts for the completion of the life history. That's called the digenetic. Okay, and its primary hosts are, let me write down here. Its primary hosts are sheep and goat. Sheep and goat. Okay, in which it lives in their bile duct of the liver. So that's why it's called the liver flu. Okay, and it causes a disease, a very fatal disease called the liver rot. Liver rot or cirrhosis. And it's also known by as fasciola. Fascioliasis. Okay, it's actually the disease which is known as fasciola because of its name. Now, this is about the liver fluke found in the sheep and goat, and talking about the blood fluke. Here we have this blood fluke is also known as Cystosoma, and why it is called the blood fluke? Here is a reason, because let me try this of words. Because blood fluke is found in the hepatic portal vein. Hepatic portal vein. Hepatic portal vein. And urinary tract blood vessels. Okay, and lymph nodes. In human beings. Okay. In humans. Especially in India and other Southeast Asian countries. So that's why it's called the blood fluke, Cystosoma. It's also called as the blood fluke. Well, it causes a disease called Cystosomiasis. Cystosomiasis. Okay, it causes a disease called Cystosomiasis. It is also known as bilharziasis. Okay, well, that name was not important. Well, I have told you bilharziasis. Okay, so these are some of the diseases that this causes. And in this disease, what it does, it attacks the viscera, causing pure dysentery, cough, liver damage, and subnormal development. Okay. Now talking about here, we have another example here. That's planaria. Okay. Planaria. Wait a second. Yeah. Planaria. This is another example. Planaria is also called as Ducatia. It is omnivore. Planaria is omnivore. Yeah. And well, the power of regeneration is very much high. Power of regeneration. Okay, the power of regeneration is very much high in case of Dicacia planaria. And so this was all about the examples of the platyhelminths, phylum platyhelminths. I hope you got it. Now, getting back to the next slide, here we will be discussing about the classes of the platyhelminths or the flatworms. Well, there are three classes. The entire phylum has been divided into three main classes. Now, first class is Turbellaria, and the Turbellaria consists of the free-living flatworms. And the planaria comes in this class. Okay, so they are free-living, and although some are commensals and ectoparasites. Okay, commensals. I hope that you understand what is commensalism. There is a plus relationship in case of commensalism. Now, commensals and ectoparasites. Okay, and they have a digestive system comprising the ventral mouth, pharynx, intestine is also present. Okay, and they are most important. They are hermaphrodites. Mostly, they are hermaphrodites. Okay, mostly they are hermaphrodites. Now, talking about the second class called as Trematoda, they are ecto as well as endoparasites with the oral and the ventral sucker. Well, the ventral sucker is also known by another name called as acetabulum. I have also discussed this in many offline classes, and the best example for the class second, that's Trematoda, is the liver fluke and the blood fluke. Okay, and we discussed them. Now class third, which is called as Cestoda, exclusively they are endoparasites with scolex, and the examples are Taenia solum, and the Taenia saginata. Well, the Taenia saginata is very common. The Taenia solum is also known by another name, that's, or commonly they are called as the pork tapeworm, and you should be able to understand where this can be found. Taenia solum is the pork tapeworm. It's actually the endoparasite in the human intestine. Okay, so this is actually the human intestine. But why the pork has been used here? Because the pork acts as an intermediate host for the Taenia solum. That's why. So we can say that if the pork as well as the human gets involved in them for their life history, for the completion of the life history, we can also say that this is a diagenetic. That is why the diagenetic, it means that it requires two hosts for the completion of their life history. Okay, so this is two. Well, it causes a disease which can be characterized by the abdominal pain. Wait a second. It can be characterized by the abdominal pain. Well, the abdominal pain, vomiting, indigestion, nausea, okay, weakness, and that disease is called as teniasis. It's easy to remember because the tinea represents the teniasis. Okay, and we have here the Taenia saginata, which is known as a beef tapeworm. Okay, Taenia saginata is a beef tapeworm. So you should be able to understand that the beef has been used here. It means it is an intermediate host. intermediate host of the cow. Okay, intermediate host is cow for the Taenia saginata, or we can say the beef tapeworm. So it's also digenetic. It's also digenetic. Requires two hosts for the completion of its life history. Okay, and the another example here I'm gonna discuss with you, although I have given in the previous slide, and that is here, that's Echinococcus. Echinococcus. Now, Echinococcus is actually it's also called as a dog tapeworm. I have already discussed with you in the previous slide. Dog tapeworm. Okay, and it causes actually hydatid cystis. It causes cystis. Where? It causes cystis in liver, lungs. Sorry, lungs. These are actually lungs, and in other parts of the body. Okay, but in case of dogs, in case of sheep, in case of goat. Okay, so this was all about the phylum Platyhelminths. I hope you understood the whole topic, and if you really enjoyed the topic, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe button, and don't forget, important is this, don't forget to share it to your friends also. Okay, so have a nice day. Goodbye.